continuing customer success webinar series. Today's session is entitled AppDefense Platinum. These sessions are bi-weekly and are available via Zoom invite as well as streamed live on twitch.tv. Alternating weeks will be a Twitch office hour session hosted by the customer success team discussing many aspects of our VMware Cloud offering. The recordings will also be posted on YouTube so that you can consume it that manner as well. My name is Matt Vandenbeld, and I am a Customer Success Architect on the VMware Cloud Customer Success team. And on behalf of the VMware team, I would like to personally thank you for investing your time with us today. In today's session, we'll discuss an overview of AppSense and what's new with our AppDefense Platinum. Today, we have with us Paige Clapper. Paige leads our Customer Success Architect team for AppDefense and works with our customers to successfully implement AppDefense. She doesn't believe in Twitter and only has an Instagram account, but I'm not going to put up on the screen.
Yeah, it's private, so no one would be able to access it.
So before I start, I would like to remind all guests that they're muted. Please post questions using Q&A feature at the bottom of your Zoom window, and we'll respond to them throughout the session. Paige, over to you.
Awesome. Yeah, so as Matt mentioned, I am a customer success architect focused on AppDefense. I've actually put our first 17 customers into production so far, and a few of them have started to come in with the newest Platinum update. So for those of you that don't know, we did launch the Platinum Edition, which essentially just means that if you're using or upgrading to vCenter 6.7 U1, then you'll be able to have some additional features with AppDefense. But for those of you who are using 6.5 or anything other than that, and you don't know what AppDefense is, I'm going to go over some things that you would still be able to see from the tool. Oh. So as I mentioned, the agenda for today is to review AppDefense from an overall perspective. So regardless of if you have Platinum or you're planning to upgrade to 6.7 U1, as long as you have 6.5 or above, you can use AppDefense today. And it still has a ton of functionality. You'll see some slight changes in the Platinum update, but eventually they will start to build in some greater advantages to be on the latest version. Some of the new things that they have built in, you'll automatically get if you get the SaaS version with the 6.5 as well. So most of the time of today, we're going to spend in the console, actually. So you'll be able to see exactly what you would get. This will be with the SaaS version, and then I will go into a vCenter demo and be able to show you what you would see from vCenter if you decided to use the offline mode of Platinum. So the things that we'll look through in the manager is going to be the inventory and how you would do a deployment with AppDefense, the scope and service creation, and then what's new with the Platinum edition of AppDefense.
So just a quick question to that,
Oh,
Paige. Yeah. So is it
Go ahead.
AppDefense Platinum or is it vSphere Platinum that includes AppDefense? I'm kind of confused on some of that terminology.
Yeah, so it's vSphere Platinum that includes AppDefense. So essentially all that means is you'll get an additional license that will allow you a plugin to see AppDefense.
Yeah, I just don't want our customers thinking that there's AppDefense and then there's a special version of AppDefense.
No, it's if you buy vSphere Platinum, then you will get the AppDefense Platinum version built in. It's whether you decide to do the offline online mode versus the SaaS model. If you do decide to go with the SaaS model, actually, if you don't even in the beginning, they give you 1 year free, so you can test out the SaaS model. If you don't need that for particular reasons that you don't want to reach out to a cloud manager, then you can just use the offline version. It is very limited functionality for that version, which I'll show you in the vCenter demo at the end as well. But yeah, so just to give you a little overview of AppDefense and a baseline for those of you who have never even heard of it before, it is VMware's data center security tool, which we use that's integrated into the guest or the VM layer. It is supported with containers as well. So if you are running containers on top of your VMs, we will support that. And essentially what it allows you to do is it'll monitor every process and behavior that is happening within a VM, which will give you a really granular view of all of the communication that's inbound and outbound, and also do integrity checks for you, which we constitute as if there's been a change in any of the kernel module memory, the kernel memory, and then also the AppDefense module memory as well. We'll let you know in the case that something has changed. So this is a whitelist product versus your end user security that you're probably used to today. Essentially what that means is we set a verified behavior list. So as I mentioned, it's going to run through all the processes and behaviors that you have running throughout all your VMs. And you just need to verify all those behaviors. AppDefense has some capabilities built in too that will help you pre-verify a bunch of them. For any of the unknowns though, we're going to have you check those, and I will be able to demo that for you a little bit later in the manager tool. So this is the way, I have a little toolbar here that I just need to move up. So this is a way to kind of visualize the installation steps or what components of AppDefense will live in your environment. The AppDefense Cloud Manager will just be a site that you'll go to, and you'll be able to view all of your inventory lists, anything that it collects from your vCenter environment after you do deployment. So the first thing you would deploy is the AppDefense appliance. This is per vCenter. There is no cap on how many you can deploy, but it is one appliance per vCenter. And then you have a host module VIB that is installed. This is no interruption to the host, so you don't need to do any sort of restart after you install this into the host. And then you have the guest module as well as guest integrity. So both of these are needed in order to create a communication path back to the host through the appliance back to the manager. And I'll show you the two steps, but something that greatly benefits this whole installation process is if you do have the Platinum version, it will allow you to install through vCenter with just one click of a button to an entire cluster that you have. So it greatly simplifies the whole process. Some other things that we have that you can integrate with is going to be NSX. So this will really come into handy when you create remediation actions, which I will again show you in the manager later, which will help you kind of visualize what I'm talking about. But essentially, a remediation action will be taken upon something that goes outside of that verified behavior list that you've indicated is something that you don't want to happen at all. With NSX, you can quarantine a VM, and you wouldn't be able to do that unless you had NSX. In the future as well, using Service Composer, you're going to be able to create custom templates to remediate actions. So it'll allow you to get very specific on your remediation actions when you integrate with NSX. And then secondly, we integrate with VRA and Puppet. So this will come into handy when you're creating your scopes and services. And when I'm talking about all these things, I should mention, this is with the SaaS version only, so you can't use this today if you're in the offline mode. And that's something that will come into the offline, online versus the SaaS version. But essentially, VRA and Puppet will allow you to seamlessly create scopes and services through things that you've already set up in your vCenter environment today. Okay, and so this is just a picture that kind of shows you, we check the process and then the behaviors within that process. So that's considered an IP that's in or out bound. And then we do integrity checks as well at the guest layer. And then that's communicated back up to the manager. Okay. So now I'm gonna go over to the console. Excuse me. Okay, so you can see here, this is the AppDefense Dashboard. Chords. So if anyone was at VMworld, they've seen this dashboard before. But essentially, this would be what you would see when you log into AppDefense. It'll give you an overall inventory check. So you'll be able to see how many unassigned VMs you have, which means that it's auto-detected these VMs in the vCenter that you have deployed your appliance into, as well as when you get into the inventory pages, you'll be able to see the hosts. It'll give you an overview of your alarms. There are no unresolved alarms right now. Scopes that are in discovery versus protected mode, which we will review a little bit later. And then any provisioning events as well. So first, I'm going to go over here to the appliances.
Paige, real quick, do you think it's possible to maximize that window? Just hit the green button. The left green button. The top left green button.
Oh, this one.
Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes. Sorry about that. Okay, so this is what the appliance page would look like. So depending on how many vCenters you have, this is where all your appliances would live. And you'd be able to see the status of those appliances. But essentially, this is part of your inventory page. And then when we go into the actual inventory, what's great about this is it auto detects all the hosts and the VMs, as I mentioned, as soon as you deploy that appliance into that vCenter. And so this part is going to be in a two-step. So if you don't have the Platinum Edition, you'd be able to just install from here. And what I'll show you later in Platinum is how you can seamlessly just install with a one-step button. But essentially, you could just hit all of these and then install update for the latest AppDefense the modules. And I mentioned you don't need to do a restart on it, so it's non-intrusive. It'll just run in the background. And then same for your VMs. This is where you'll be able to deploy, update, and then also enable guest integrity in the case that this is the first time deployment. Again, this is your overall inventory list. And then from there, after those things are deployed, you can create scopes and services. So these two down here are scopes that were created. It's really easy to create a scope. You just do this.
I was going to ask to name the scope Matt.
Oh,
that's fine.
Wow, Matt, now that you said that, we could just edit the scope and call it Matt.
Excellent.
So it's very easy to do that. Essentially, that's all a scope is basically a name. So as I mentioned earlier, this is an application-based security. So what we want, preferably the best practice would be, is to set this up under the application name, whether that's like Exchange or a file application that you have. In-house applications are absolutely supported as well. And essentially, you would just name that the application name, and then from there, you'd add a service within here. So what a service would consist of is basically it has two things. You're going to have members, which is the VMs or the containers, and it's going to then create processes based on that. The best practice here is that any VMs that live in the same service should be homogeneous. So we don't want VMs that are doing different processes or wildly different things to be in the same service. And that just promotes a better security practice so that we can identify unusual behaviors for those particular VMs. So a lot of people get kind of confused at this step as to how would you really break down a scope and a service. The easiest way to think of this is if you have let's say, a file application and you have certain VMs in that file application that you don't want to receive internet access to, those are VMs that you would put into a separate service, because all remediation actions are based off of the service level and not the scope level. So it does allow you to differentiate between your applications as to certain portions that are supporting different parts of that application, their level of protection. So it allows you to get pretty granular on that. So I'm going to cancel that one out. This would mean that a scope is in discovery mode. So when you see that compass there, it essentially means that it's in the learning phase. And what AppDefense will do is then learn all of the behaviors over the next 2 to 4 weeks, depending on how active that application is. So if you have an extremely low activity level application, 2 weeks is probably a perfect amount of time for it to capture all of that information. If you have a very active or a large application, it's probably going to be closer to 30 days or above for us to capture that. We also recommend that you do a service update or your regular cycled updates while in discovery mode, and then a reboot if you can as well. So it can capture all of that behavior before we put it into protected mode. And I'm going to show you the example. So this scope is in protected mode right now. And as you can see, there are 3 separate services within this scope. And each of them has a different number of VMs in there and a verified behavior list. So essentially, before you put a scope into protected mode, you're going to look through all of these things, make sure, and as you can see, there's a lot of little green checks here. So we do have 3 checks, which is the process threat score, process trust, and then behavior analysis. The first 2 is based off of a Carbon Black database that we pull from. So we'll do a reputation trust score and threat score. And then we have behavior analysis, which is our internal machine learning code. So we've compiled a database of sort of verified behaviors that we've seen. And when that's the case, you'll see verified over here, or anomalous. So anomalous would mean there's something about this behavior that doesn't match up, whether it's you're using the wrong port for a SQL database communication, etc. So as I mentioned, there's a number of, oops, sorry, I just downloaded all of that. So yeah, you can export all these behaviors as well and be able to look at them through Excel if that seems easier. So as soon as you've identified that this is all correct, and really the only ones you want to check on are the unknowns, so this would be an unknown behavior, etc., then you would put it into protected mode. So we've reached the 3rd life cycle of AppDefense. So we had the first installation, scope and service creation, as well as put into discovery mode, and then you enter into protected mode. And this is where things get a little exciting in terms of being able to create remediation actions based off of alarms. So over here, you can see there's a little 2 next to the app tier application. So we have 2 alarms that we can look at. And within this, you will be able to see exactly what behavior has changed. So essentially, this is what it will tell you is the CLI has changed from the original one that it learned in discovery mode. We also have these checks over here, as you can see. This is a different kind of alarm. So we have an info alarm as well as a serious alarm. The ones we really want to pay attention to are the critical. But in this case, just for demo purposes, I'll go ahead and show you how we can create a remediation action. So if you edit the service and you go to rules, this is where you can see all the remediation actions that we offer. For process monitoring, outbound connections, which is essentially if it's communicating to the internet outside of the verified behavior list, we have it set to block and send alerts. So we'll actually block all of that communication and then send an alert based on that. But as I mentioned, there are a few other remediation actions that we can take as well. Alert won't do any sort of physical action. It will just let you know that something's changed. Snapshot will take a snapshot. Power off, suspend, and then as I mentioned, quarantine is only available if you integrate with NSX.
So Uh, just a quick question there. It doesn't look like it, but can you select multiple different type there? Can I snapshot and block and send an alert, or?
No, and that's where I was had mentioned a little bit earlier too. NSX will become useful because that's when you can start to identify what you want to do. If you want to do multiple remediation actions through Service Composer, you can create custom policies to carry that out. So that's where NSX and AppDefense together would be very valuable. Is if you want to do multiple remediation actions or be very specific, such as everything over port 80 is going to be blocked, etc. But yeah, so just for now, you can only choose one. And then I mentioned the enforce guest OS integrity. So if something does change within the OS kernel, we will alert or we can block, we can power off, quarantine, snapshot, etc. And then same with the AppDefense module integrity. Okay, so that's the full life cycle essentially of AppDefense. And now I want to kind of get into where things are different with the Platinum integration. So first I'll go over here, and I hope this hasn't timed out already. But this is a regular vCenter login, and essentially what you'll be able to see as soon as you go into the data center. So this already has AppDefense installed on it. You'll be able to see the AppDefense cluster status is installed on all the hosts. So essentially what would be different here is you'll be able to install to all the hosts from this console. So you'd be able to click a button and it would install to all of your hosts within this cluster. Then if we just choose a VM here. Okay, so for the summary page, again, it's going to show you that it has installed AppDefense. The way you would install AppDefense for the VMs would be that you click the host, and essentially the same way that you did to all the hosts, you will just install to all the VMs that live on that host. And it's a lot more seamless than to try and do it through the AppDefense Manager. So that's one of the big benefits of Platinum, is just to be able to seamlessly install and even update all of this, which would be through VM tools as well, it's going to be a lot easier than the non-Platinum version. And then if you're running the offline configuration mode, a lot of the goodness that we saw before from the SaaS manager, you won't be able to see here with the offline version. So I'll show you what you'll be able to do essentially from an AppDefense perspective. And this is, again, this is for Platinum offline only. So the VM will not be able to be assigned to a scope or a service if it's in offline mode, and that's where a lot of the discovery process and then the remediation actions happen. But the discovery process, if you can remember from the SaaS version, doesn't show you specifically which VM, but it's tied to the service and the application. So it's a more overarching, not so specific, but like kind of contextual in terms of it allows you to understand that the appropriate behaviors for that actual application are running. With this, it's going to be very VM specific. So you'll be able to see the process, the hash, and then the reputation. So this list will grow as it continues to learn the specific behaviors for this VM. But you won't be able to, it's more of a knowledge base, so you won't be able to create any remediation actions based off of that. It'll just be, oh, hey, this process shouldn't be running in my VM, so I need to investigate further as to why that's happening. So, okay, yeah, so this is just the offline version again. But then from the AppDefense Manager side, another cool thing that we're going to see with the Platinum version is going to be the AppTopology. And hopefully this will load for me.
need some filler here. Should have.
Yeah.
Just
Okay,
just a
I'm gonna
reminder
put
to
you back
everybody that
here.
if you want to go ahead and ask questions, the QA is open or on Twitch. Go ahead.
Yeah, please ask questions. I have personally worked with our first customers, so if anyone's curious to hear of things that I can share about that, then please ask away. But it looks like it kicked me out of there, but it showed up for a second. So I can, I guess, try and speak to what it's going to show you, even though the picture does it much nicer. Essentially, what it will show you is the connection of all the services and communication to the scope level. So it'll give you a picture view. Here we go, of the communication between all of these services to the scope, and from this legend, which is not helping.
Is this new? I don't think I've seen this before.
Yes, this is new. So
Okay.
this is really cool. Essentially, yeah, this will be really great to kind of understand. And we have a lot more of this stuff coming too in terms of like really digesting. AppDefense does such a good job of giving you so much information about all of the processes and the communication that's happening, but it's really hard to contextualize unless you spend a good amount of time with it. So we are creating these pictures that will show you kind of in bulk what the processes are. If you can see over here, you have two VMs and they have 163 processes, and how the communication is between all of those, and really where do we see similar processes, etc. But essentially, this is one of the new things that you'll see with the platinum version as well. So this is just specific also to this scope right now.
And this is built automatically.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
So this will be built as soon as you as soon as it starts discovering information, it'll start to build out this picture for you. And you'll be able to see over here, you can even see what's TCP versus UDP connection types and which processes are below that, etc. And then we can try this too in the domain controller. And so this is where the legend kind of comes into in handy, but let's try and maybe zoom in here so we can see it better. But essentially this legend shows you have shared services over here, whether you have a public IP, which you have two of those down here. You have a private IP, which is the lock symbol, and then any additional ones. So we're really trying to help you contextualize again all of the behaviors and actions that are happening within these scopes and services.
And just so everyone knows, this is not best security practice to run VMs on your domain controller.
Yes.
Demo purposes only.
For demo purposes only. Yeah. So, um, but yeah, so this is a really exciting thing that we're having coming. And then, like I mentioned, we are evolving this as well. So those are really some of the new features that you'll see with Platinum. As I mentioned, the vCenter integration is going to be really number one. If you're running offline mode, you won't be able to set any scopes or services together. You'll have to just look at the individual VM, and you'll be able to see their processes and behaviors. You'll get you won't get any of the verification checks if you're running offline either. For the online mode, I didn't mention, so you'll see all the same things that you see in the offline mode, but you'll get behavior checks like we saw before. The SaaS version, in my opinion, is really where it's at because you can see all of this goodness that we kind of went through very quickly today. I am going to go through a few more features because I think a lot of people think of a whitelisting product and it makes them a little nervous in terms of how much, you know, individual data they're going to have to go through. But we've built in a lot of tools to kind of overarch and help with the mitigation of how to handle these processes and services. So with that, I will go to the global service list. So one of the first things that we started to notice in when we were deploying customers is that we have a lot of Microsoft processes that run very sporadic IP addresses. Even though they're known public IP addresses, it's typical for these updates to reach out to many different IPs. And that can be difficult to try and capture in a particular service. So what we've done is created this, oh, there's no global services in here. But we do have a global services list, if you can believe me. And essentially, this is a demo environment, so this maybe hasn't been updated with the latest global services, but we have a large list of IPs that are automatically verified to places such as Akamai, if you're using that as a load balancer, AWS, or EC2, as we have a lot of as a lot of other security products actually reach out to do their updates from there. We have the Microsoft known IP addresses, Google, etc. So these are verified public IP addresses for a lot of the very popular updates of tools that you're currently running. So you won't have to worry about those causing any sort of false alarm case. And then we have an org-based one as well. So if you have specific IP addresses that you know are used across all of your scopes and all of your services, you can start to add them to your org-specific list as well. Right here we have a Google DNS, but domain controllers might be a good IP address to add in here as well. And some other shared services that you know a lot of these VMs will be reaching out to. The next thing I'm going to go through is the process list. So here we have basically think of this as a global whitelist and blacklist. So what this will do, you'll probably question why we need the global whitelist, because we are already creating that in a particular scope and service. But you might just find that there's a particular executable that's maybe part of your homegrown application that is going to start to pop up sporadically throughout your scopes and services, and that it's not going to be learned in discovery mode. If you automatically add this to the whitelist, it'll add it to every scope and service whitelist as well. So this is global, it's not scope based. So we want to make sure that you know that this process is something that should be running throughout all your scopes and services. And then the blacklist. So this is one where if you've seen something like PowerShell running and it shouldn't be running anywhere, or if you have any internal standards as to processes that you don't allow to run, Internet Explorer might be one of them, you would add this to the global blacklist, and then this will automatically never allow a process to be added to the allowed behavior list. So even though it won't specifically block anything on this process, so we won't create remediation actions on it, it will just always, it'll just never be allowed on the verified behavior list. So you'll always get some sort of alert on it in that case. IE, I would say, is probably the most popular blacklist item, just because it's pretty much not best practice to use that. But again, this is org level, so you have to make sure that you want to stop that from running in all of your scopes and services. And then the integrations we had mentioned already. So that's really most of the main portions of AppDefense and the features. I know this is we're super early, but does anyone have any questions as to new stuff? Did we get anything in the chat? Or Matt, do you have any questions?
We haven't got anything in the chat yet. So some of the questions that I may have here that's come up. So one of the things I remember we talked about at VMworld Europe was around the two-factor stuff.
Yes. Yeah, we actually do have SSO authentication now,
Yeah,
but that's only with the Platinum appliance. So I should mention that as well. You don't need to actually, it's with the new appliance, I should say. I'm sorry to cause confusion. So basically, with the new appliance, you will have SSO authentication.
so now along those lines too. So this is a SaaS service offered by VMware. So we look after updates to the App Defense platform. Is that on any kind of cadence, or is that just
Yeah. So
continuous? Or
do you mean feature updates?
well, so I mean, like, so I know in the VMC world, we do a quarterly major update.
Yeah.
Is it the same kind of thing in App Defense, or is it just a kind of as features become available, they're made available?
Yeah, so we do actually every 3 months, but every other is a major, and then the other one is a lesser release. So it'll be smaller in terms of the features that are included. So for our major release, it was actually just the platinum release that we did. So that was in I want to say mid-October, and the next one is anticipated sort of the end of our fiscal year at VMware, which is really around like the February timeframe, for another smaller release. So Platinum would be the big one, and then the next one will be smaller. Um, but yeah, so that's just the cadence that we keep. In between that, though, we something that's really unique to our team is we work with our first customers, and a lot of them have become design partners to us as well. And we prioritize the things that they request in it. So that's kind of been an awesome part of me working with the first couple of customers is they've really got to have input into how the product evolves. And so some of the features that you even just saw were customer backed features that we had put into the product. And definitely a lot of the diagrams and everything is going to be super helpful in terms of that as well, for customers to be able to better understand kind of the communication path and what processes they should really be looking at as potential threats.
So another quick question I had too is around the alerts. So what exactly alerts?
So essentially, whenever, like I mentioned, that this would be, let me go back here. This would be your verified behavior list. So you have all of your behaviors here, or I should say processes is the card here. And then when you click in here, this would be the behavior included.
So I mean more in the concept of how do I get the alert? How do I know there's an
Yeah.
alert?
Yes. So for the SaaS version, you have to log in and you'll be able to see your alerts from either the alarms page or you'll know there is an alert, if there is a little red dot next to it. If you want active updates, you're going to have to integrate with your SIM. So your security events manager. We right now integrate with Splunk and QRadar, and then we're working on having a API developed, an open API, so that you can run this through majority of customer SIMs right now, which is a feature request that we've heard over and over again from our customers. But something that's is really awesome about that too is that App Defense gives you so much detail, as I mentioned before, that as soon as you integrate it into your SIM, all of your other security products have like a much greater application awareness slash context. So it creates a holistic security approach. It creates a really good view for all of your applications. You kind of get the entire picture of what's going on. But yeah, so there's no active alerts through App Defense today. You'll have to integrate with that SIM if you want that.
Okay, that's that's excellent. And is there any kind of historical logging or anything where you can kind of see what's gone wrong after you've cleared anything, or
Yeah, so you do have a cleared alarms list over here. So you'll be able to see all the alarms that you've cleared. So this is up to 1,000 alarms right there. I believe it retains data for 60 plus days for the cleared alarms.
Oh, and it looks like you can export them as well, which is handy.
Yes, you can. There's an export button on almost all of these tabs, which was another customer feature request, because it's helpful just for auditing, etc.
And there's no way to remove these cleared alarms, right? There's no
You
delete this.
can, you can actually, um, actually, no, you can't. I'm sorry, I thought that you could
Well, I hope not, because
select
that
all.
that'd be a way that if I were to do something nefarious, I would try to clean up my tracks, but you can't apparently in here, which is good.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, that's right. I was just thinking on this page, there is a way that you can clear all of these if you want to. Clearing them doesn't allow them though. So if you want to allow a behavior, you'll have to go into the individual behavior and allow it. But again, the default that we set for the newest appliance is that it will only show you the most critical alerts. So the other ones will just be there for contextual view, as I mentioned before.
So you showed some of the Carbon Black integration. So is that a constantly updated thing? Like is it that on a cadence as well, or do we know?
Yeah. So for the database, you mean?
Yeah. So new applications come out, or what something gets found out in the wild. Is that
Yeah, so that's actually up to Carbon Black to update that database. As far as I know, they do update it very regularly, and then we are connected into it through the AppDefense console. We actually have a pretty good, I shouldn't say pretty good, we do have a partnership with Carbon Black as well. So you can, if you are using CB Defense, you can integrate AppDefense into that and see all of the app defense information from your CB Defense console, as well as the vice versa. So you can see all of the CB Defense information from your app defense console as well. That's just one of the integrations that we have with them. And then you can carry out remediation actions from either console. So if you are a CB Defense customer and fan and you have worked in their console and you really want to include app defense in that, you will be able to just continue to use your CB Defense console and you can see all the app defense information and then carry out any remediation actions from there too.
Oh, that's cool. So what kind of customers would you recommend, to kind of get on this right now? Like, just everybody, or is there kind of a more particular use cases you've seen out there?
Yeah, that's actually what I was thinking about as we were coming to the end. I know we have some shy people on the phone who are probably really curious about what current customers have seen value in. I would say the majority of my customers that I work with don't have a dedicated security team. So they need really a lot of intelligence built into their security products to be able to help them to better protect the environment that they have. I'm not saying that that's the only customer that we can have. We definitely have other customers who have dedicated security teams that are working with this tool as well, and it's given them great benefit. I would say the number one thing that we've seen or that I've seen from working with customers is this behavior list has been tremendous in helping customers to really understand what their applications are doing, because I think almost every customer I get on the phone with says, I know exactly what's happening here. And then they find 5 or 6 processes that should not be running that have been running. And they might not necessarily be malicious processes, but it does cause um, concern or pause that some of these things that maybe is an old agent from a POC, that being proof of concept, that you've done with another vendor a few years ago. We had a specific example of that where there was still an agent running from 2 years ago on a proof of concept that they did, which, that's kind of surprising, I think, to most customers to be able to see this amount of data. So
Oh,
I would say
I could almost wager that every customer would find something that they don't know on here.
exactly. And I think that's what's most surprising is a lot of people come in to, get to the end state, which I showed you is setting remediation actions, which of course is the end goal for most all customers. But value day one, you see already when you recognize how much information it's giving you on the behaviors. Another customer had a little bit more stringent security practices and realized that their SQL database was every time it started up, it would phone home over port 80, which was not best practice for them. And they took that to the vendor and they said, I'm not sure why this is doing that. It shouldn't be. And so they really it's just been able to get so specific on certain things to increase the security for the customers using it today that they've seen a ton of value.
No, no, absolutely. So, and I know that neither one of us is in sales, but is there a 30-day free trial for this, or how is I understand you buy vSphere Platinum, you get it, but what about I just want to get the SaaS? I want to do this
Yeah,
today.
so there is a POC program, which is run by our wonderful sales engineers. And it'll mostly be you'll be working with a sales engineer for that time. I think it is 30 days, but it might be a little bit longer. But you will be able to provision a demo environment and then test the SaaS version. But again, like I mentioned, if you end up going to Platinum, the vSphere Platinum edition, you will get the SaaS version for free for a year too. So you'll have the plugin available to you and be able to seamlessly integrate AppDefense that way, or install AppDefense on all of your hosts and VMs, and then be able to use the SaaS version for a year. So that's basically a 1 year test with the SaaS version in the case that you've already planned to go to the vSphere Platinum.
So the SaaS version is just like a typical SaaS version. You get a monthly bill. Is that per VM? Is that
It's
do you know?
actually not a monthly bill. So the billing cycle for the SaaS version is not very fast. It is a 1 or 3 year subscription that you would pay for, and then you get to use AppDefense for that term. So it's actually a license.
And then again is that I mean, which I don't think is a problem, but is that then per VM, or is it like you get 1 year
Oh, sorry. Yeah,
everything
it's per socket
for
is the price.
host socket?
Yes,
Okay,
host socket.
so yank those sockets out if you want to get cheap. There's actually customers I know that have done stuff like that, but
They're
not to
smart.
recommend that you get.
I don't know that you're supposed to be giving them that tip, though.
Oh no, but that also halves your CPU, so you know,
So don't do that.
no, try not to do that.
Yeah.
But it's good to know. That's a I guess that's a common licensing model for a lot of software now. That's something that we've done for licensing for quite a long time. So,
Yes. Yeah. Um, yeah, and we'll see a lot of integrations with App Defense over the coming year, so that'll be exciting as well.
no, and that's something I think that I want to touch upon a little bit too. Is if anybody attended VMworld US or VMworld Europe, there was definitely a very big focus from our executive on this product. So there's definitely something that we are heavily invested in and seeing succeed.
Yes,
So
definitely. And I think that it's all the hype is justified too. Just like I mentioned, I think the most rewarding thing is number one, putting these couple of customers into deployment with some of them started very early on in the product too, but they continue to see value even when it was just at its first inception. So I think there's going to be tons to come, and you can see. Let's just go back to that fun dashboard. We'll be able to sort of see the evolution of how we're interpreting or showing all of this data that we have or that we've gathered
oh no,
from your
I
application.
I could
Yeah.
foresee a lot
Oh,
of cool integrations we can do. And just as a heads up, and I don't know if it's affecting you as well, but apparently we do some of our portal upgrades on Tuesday evenings,
That could be happening.
which we ran into as the about a month ago or a couple weeks ago. So, but it didn't go down long. But yeah, I could foresee there's a lot of our technologies that I think that would play really well with this. Network insight possibly, and other tools that we could have some really cool integrations that I know that we're working on. So
Yes. So right now, the most advanced integration we have so far is with NSX, and that's going to continue to improve, which is a really important integration for us, especially in the sense that even some of my customers have deployed AppDefense first before deploying NSX, and it helped them set up all of their firewall policies based on the communication that they've discovered from the AppDefense behavior list. So that those two definitely go hand in hand. And then, as you mentioned, Network Insight also gives an additional contextual view of the things that are happening with App Defense, like some of the origin IP and the flows, and they have some really great ways of showing that
I
information
think
all
I think that this closes a very big gap, not a very big gap, but a gap in so network insight. Well, it'll show me who's talking to who and what ports and what IPs, but not what application necessarily. Like it won't go right down to the process level like this will,
correct.
which will
Yes.
really gives you a really cool picture. And like I said, I think I'd almost be willing to issue the security challenge of you think you know exactly what's running in your environment. I can guarantee well, you might know 98%. There's always that server admin, and I know because I used to be one. That
Yeah.
sneaks a little application wherever I can to get access to something that I need at that time.
Yeah, and it actually, for some of my customers, they're like the Internet Explorer police now. And notice that Internet Explorer has popped up on one of the servers, which is typically a no-no, and they'll go find out who was logged in at that time and, catch them. So it's kind of cool to be used by that too. But yeah, there's a lot of good stuff that you can gather from App Defense Day One, and then eventually be able to block certain behaviors that are just unacceptable in your environment, which is
So that
powerful.
raises an interesting question, and I don't know. So I'm assuming this would work with workstation VMs as well. Then
So no, actually,
no, okay.
this will work with data center applications. The problem that we get into with the workstation use case is that it creates a high behavior list in terms of the variables that come into play. And for now, App Defense is not best suited for that, but eventually we will get to that.
Well, that's good to know because I think that's something that some people might look for. Uh, so it's good that we're working that way. It's also good to know that it's not quite there yet. Um, and I mean, this product is what a year old, year and a half old,
Yeah, a little over, I think it's a year and a half now.
give or take. So we're still in the pretty early stages of it, and it's already come a very long way in that time.
Yes.
So very hopeful. And can you maybe just around the design partner thing? I know you mentioned it and kind of can maybe get a little detail of what being a design partner means. So if you get in early right now, you can become part of this program and what that can do for you as a customer. And
Yeah, so essentially we have some great opportunities. One of our main design partners has attended both VMworlds with us and spoken at sessions with us, and given direct feedback into the product, which are some of the things that you've seen. Becoming a design partner is pretty easy. You would start working on the product, and then your sales team would then put you in to work with me and my team, the customer success team. And essentially, your direct feedback will make it to the desk of the people that build this, mostly because I sit right next to the desk of the people that build it. So I can just walk over and tell them that some of the great feature requests that we have. In addition to that, we are building more activities for our design partners as well. So there's not a formalized program other than working with customer success is definitely the way to get the most involved with the product. But we are creating some user workshops where customers can come and give direct feedback on things in the tool that they want to see improved, and that would be run by a lot of our product managers. So those are the some of the activities that we have for those customers who are really highly invested in helping us grow.
Yeah, and I think it's a valid point. Is there is a little bit of a commitment to being on the customer side of being a design partner as well. That there are some tasks, especially when it comes to new features. We would, ask the customer, hey, can you test this out for us? Does it work like you think it
Exactly.
should? And all of those kinds of things. But it is a really, when I was a customer, I would loved to have had the opportunity to have the kind of input into the product. And it's something that we're very much yearning for as we are developing this for the customers. And this is the whole point kind of for the customer success team. And this is, Paige, what Paige does day to day is, take the customer feedback, across the desk, and really, shares it with the BU. And it's a really kind of a very cool relationship. And we're really seeing the benefits of it. And I think it's really actually kind of cool, really quite cool. And this is also the joy of the SaaS version. We don't have to wait, half a year for the next version of vSphere or another year for that feature to go in. Like how, if you come up with a good feature, you can probably see it within 3 months, 6 months, maybe
Yeah.
max.
Yeah, exactly. And it just depends. We get a ton of feature requests too from the customers, but ones that we see over and over again, or that have a really valid use case. In some cases, it might just be requested once, but we really see the value in that. It'll show up immediately. I think I started working with most of these customers like 9 months ago, and 8 of the feature requests that have come through have already made it into the product.
Oh, that's quite fantastic. So I managed to fill up some time there.
I know. Thank you. Yeah, sorry. I always like breeze right through those demos, but
No, I
yeah,
think it's because you've done a few, maybe.
yeah, I live in the question space, but um I think for customers who are really interested to see more of this, it's definitely worthwhile to just reach out to your VMware rep and they will get you in touch with the specific App Defense sales team who can help with a POC. And then for those of you who are interested in being a design partner and maybe joining the App Defense customer list, go ahead and let your sales rep know that you want to be introduced to the customer success team. And that will put you in contact with me and my team.
So also along those lines, we do have a new email distribution that comes to us, cloudcs@vmware.com. If you,
Oh, great.
some people don't necessarily know who their salesperson is or exactly the best ways of going about it. So if you're having trouble talking to your salespeople, whatever, just email cloudcs@vmware.com and we'll see what we can do to help you out.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, but with that, I think if there's no other questions, I don't have any more questions, and I don't think we have any from the chat. Again, it was a shy audience today. I actually think probably Paige just did an exceptional job of answering all the questions before they were asked, or I asked on their behalf.
Yeah,
And
let's go with that one.
okay, I'll go with that. I'll give myself the credit for that. And I really appreciate your time, Paige, in going over this. I think it's really a cool service, and it's something that I think is going to be more and more, even more so, a focus for our company, and really kind of switches the paradigm of how security is done out there, which I think is a really cool thing. Next week, we're going to have our cloud customer success office hours, which is where it's me and members of the team. I don't know if Paige will stop by. She usually doesn't, but maybe we can drag her out if people have questions, where we just kind of go over some stuff, talk about things, any questions people have. Definitely can tweet at me at vcloudmatt, or you can send that email to CloudCS for any suggestions that you have that you want to see in our office hours or upcoming webinars like this. In 2 weeks, like I said, we were talking earlier, that we'll go back to our EMEA Americas hours of 8 a.m. PST. We're going to have Aiden Dalgleish, a member of our team, going over some of the VPC connectivities and some best practices around that. We're actually trying to stay away from the best practices term. We're trying to call it design recommendations, I think is what we came up with.
Okay. Just dub over every time I said best practices.
It's one of those things where best practices brings in a connotation of if you didn't do this, you're not doing the best.
No gold star for you.
Exactly, which is not necessarily the case. You may have a really legitimate reason. So I guess I don't know. It's just a semantics thing. It's really accomplishing all the same goal, but that's we live in a world of semantics. So, but yes, I appreciate everybody that made it out today. Like I said, this will be going up on YouTube if you want to catch it later. And again, I appreciate everybody's time. Thank you for joining.
Thank you.